Welcome to Rock Solid, the Round Rock Business Leaders Podcast. Join your host, Bryan Eisenberg, as he explores the journeys of entrepreneurs and companies across Round Rock, Texas. From startups and nonprofits to large organizations, each guest shares their passion for doing business in this thriving community. Let's dive in.
Hi, everyone. I'm Bryan Eisenberg, and welcome to Rock Solid. And on today's show, we have Clarena Tobon from NAMI. So tell us a little bit about NAMI and what you do.
Sure. So, again, Clarena Tobon with NAMI Central Texas. So NAMI stands for the National Alliance on Mental Illness. We are the largest grassroots nonprofit focusing on mental health support through the peer aspect. And so what we do is very easy. It's three pillars. We do support, and that looks very different through support groups for family members and people with lived experience. We also do education. So we work with police officers doing some part of that mental health education that they go through. We go into workspaces. We do education with teachers and parents to kind of bring them together as allies to really support the kids. And we also do advocacy. So May 1st, we'll actually be at the Capitol with NAMI Texas, and we'll be working through talking with some of our reps to get some stuff moving, you know?
Yeah. This brings me back to a long ago former life when we used to tap into NAMI resources back when I was a social worker in New York.
Oh, yes.
I had left the Wurzweiler School of Social Work to join my brother in our first business back when I was much younger, more than half my life now. And so obviously very familiar with it. But for a lot of people, mental illness obviously has a lot of stigma around it. They're not necessarily sure, what qualifies when you should start talking and even identifying that maybe there's some mental illness going on here. And it's illness like the flu or anything else. It's not something that people can control, and there's all kinds of other stigmas behind it. But yeah, let's address a little bit of that.
Yeah, so we like to say mental health is just as important as physical health, right? It's all connected.
Yep.
I know for me, when I'm dealing with high levels of anxiety, I feel it in my body and my chest, the way I can move my hands, the way I can steady where I'm at. And so I think what we're trying to identify, especially at NAMI Central Texas, is how do we reach folks before they're in crisis? Because a lot of the people that come to us right now, it's unfortunate times. They've had a crisis or they've seen their loved one go through a crisis. And now they're searching, kind of how you said, through the social work aspect. They're searching for that assistance. And so what we're trying to do is actually get to people and kind of give them that bite-sized information of, we're here. Even if you're not in crisis, we can give you some education so that you can be prepared when there might be a situation. Maybe it's a coworker, a neighbor. You can know what to do next. And so I think that what I'd love to see is a world where we understand that mental health and the services out there are there before you even get to a point in which you feel like you're either out of control or you don't have control, or a family member is having to try to identify all these resources when it can feel so heavy. It's heavy.
It is. One of my friends likes to talk about the straw that broke the camel's back, right? And he's a neuro-based chiropractor, but he talks about this, right? It's, we come in when there's that one pain, but it wasn't that one pain that caused it. It was a whole bunch of things that just added up to it. And, I even know from my, my recent health transformation, right? I had I didn't know, but I had terrible blood sugar. So I had brain fog, and I was tired throughout the day. And, I had a number of crises a few years ago that I was definitely dealing with some light depression. There's no question about it. But yet, once I started getting the body healed and started getting out of this metabolic syndrome and insulin resistance, which, scary enough, almost 9 out of 10 humans on Earth have this problem now. That we're one straw from it breaking into something more drastic.
Yeah, we say often you're only one life scenario away from being someone that you see in the streets and you're sort of like, my gosh, why are they here? How did they get here? Really, it's one thing that can just kind of
spiral out of control.
Absolutely. And we say, so 1 out of 5 adults deal with a mental health condition of some sort. But the reality is the other 4 people it's that ripple effect.
Yeah.
Those are their loved ones. Those are their employees or coworkers and their neighbors. And so it affects all of us in some way, shape, or form. And so when you can sit down and say, what can I do to educate myself, or what do I need to do for my loved one to be ready when they come out of a hospital? Those are the things in which NAMI can come along and do an 8-week course. It's 2 hours a week. It's free. And you get to learn about all these pieces that you should identify and take care of yourself while you're taking care of someone else, which I wish I had when there was a crisis in my family.
Rock Solid is produced and recorded at Round Rock Studio. Located right here in Round Rock, our state-of-the-art studio is built for podcasters and creatives alike. We offer multiple professionally designed podcast sets, top-notch recording gear, and a full photography studio ready for any project. Whether you're launching a new podcast or upgrading your existing one, we can help with multi-camera recording, editing, and everything you need for success. Record with us at Round Rock Studio, your local podcasting partner.
Yeah, I mean, my wife and I own a home care agency, and of course, I've dealt in a lot of industries over my career as an entrepreneur and consulting to companies, and I say, this is one of the hardest industries ever because everybody's in crisis, right? The family's in crisis. The senior's starting to lose some independence. Yeah. That's a crisis mode for most people. Even caregivers are going, they're unfortunately not in a great financial situation, most of them. Yes. They're dealing with stresses, their kids, their families. And it's like, it's just that one thing. And they're not arming themselves with the information in order to handle things better because it's I mean, I've seen the big crisis of mental health. Back when I was a social worker, I used to deal with chronically mentally ill, everything from, depression to schizophrenia, to, you name it. I've seen it all, to dual addiction and schizophrenia.
Dual diagnosis,
to people, unfortunately, who unalive themselves, right? Which is when it gets the worst of worst. And I've had a former student who did that, to, one of our clients who did that. And I don't think the families even knew what to look for, that beginning stage of, hey, I need to arm myself. I need to educate myself. How do we get them to know about that?
Yeah, so I think, that's a big question, right? Because I think, so for me, I'm Latina, you're Latino, and the conversations that live in our households look very different. Yep. Culturally diverse spaces that we are in, especially Austin, it's so diverse. Yep. I think that the biggest thing is really truly just talking about it yourself, like having very honest conversations at home, or, bringing up things that maybe give someone the space to say, oh, this is a safe space for me to kind of mention something. And I'll give you an example. So I was 18 years old when my mom first went through a crisis. She was 36. She was my best friend, everything to me in my life. And it was the first time that we ever identified anything to do with mental health in the household. It was just myself and my sister and my mother. I didn't have anyone else. And so here I am, 18 years old, and the doctors are like, you need a power of attorney. You need to go get this done. What is that? Mom has bipolar. What is that? Yep. And so then the medication, what is that? And it's counteracting, and she's having all these things. So in a 2-year span, she was in and out of the hospital about 6 or 7 times. She wasn't working. I was the only one in the house, but I'm also a caregiver to now a teenager and my mother. And
the burden on you to handle all of that.
Right. And unfortunately, my mom did die by suicide. And so at the end, we did lose her. And there was this moment where I was like, I failed. I'm already an immigrant. So everything lands on my shoulders as the eldest. And I just felt like a failure. I didn't know what to do. And how do I explain this to my sister? She was only 37 too, so young. And I think back of all those times, and I think of all the conversations that we could have had that could have changed, and how we could have had translators there instead of me translating the darkest moments of my mother's life,
which were probably difficult for her to even talk about.
100%.
With you.
Yes. And so then she's feeling like a burden, and all of that. I think where I found the most healing was finding my first support group, which is actually part of my journey with NAMI. I came to Texas after Alaska. In Alaska, I found my first support group through the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and it changed my life because it made me feel no longer alone. It was like a room of strangers all of a sudden became a room of family. And when I said why, they understood what that question was.
Right. There's a shared experience and understanding of this world that unfortunately we've had to deal with.
100%. And it's so safe. It feels so safe. And so being on this side now, the executive director of NAMI Central Texas, it's the realization that I've come full circle in a way where I'm able to really like stand up and say, we need sustainable methods in order to be able to provide more of these services to the community, because everyone sees free, but we've got staff that are pouring their heart into this, but the heart is not how you make, impact. Rent and all those things, and absolutely impact, and making sure their mental health is safe. Because when you open that door and say, this is where I work, very often they want to share their story, their most vulnerable stories. You're a stranger, but they want to share it because they feel safe. And that's wonderful. But when you have 4 of those conversations a day, as someone that was in that kind of field, it drains a lot out of you. So going back to your question, I think the biggest thing is just showing up and saying, I'm really struggling today. I think my anxiety is a little, and then allowing other people to share that. I mean, human-centered conversations.
Yeah, one of the things that I keep hearing from a lot of my friends in the healthcare field is just how much more anxiety they're seeing in younger people, and much higher in alarming rates compared to what they used to see.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure we're even seeing it with kids because of the impact of social media as well. How do you arm parents? How do you educate them now?
Absolutely. So we have a program, actually. It's called Parents and Teachers as Allies. And so what we do is we try to have them have this cohesive conversation, because we know kids very often are with their teachers through the week more than they are with the parents. And so how do we make sure that everyone's kind of on the same playing field and ready and armed to support their child or the child in the class? So I think really, again, is how do you build a conversation with a child without making them feel like, well, all you have to do is go to school and you have a fridge full of food and a roof over your head. Don't, acknowledge feelings. Acknowledge that a hard day for them looks different than a hard day for us, right? And so a hard day for them might be like, this class really sucked, or I failed this test, and we might think, oh, it's nothing, but really it can affect them. And also, we're in a completely different world of social media.
Yes.
What we consume looks, as an adult, sometimes I'm like, oh, I need to just put this down. But for them, they might not know that maybe we need to put it down. And so there's so many things different now than what we had growing up that can cause that high anxiety or depression or whatever it might be.
So, as a parent of, young adults and teens now, and even parents who have younger kids, what are some of the early things that they should be looking for?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've recognized more, like as a parent myself too, when they start isolating, and it's not a norm for them. I mean, I get it. My oldest, he loves playing games. Yes. Yeah. And so I'll see him when he needs to go get another drink from the fridge. Hey, Mom, love you, But once that you feel that shift in energy, I think having that open conversation, hey, I'm noticing a change here. Like, is there something that's going on? If they're sleeping too much, if they're not eating enough,
not sleeping
enough. Exactly. Those shifts, instead of being like, oh, that's kind of weird, acknowledge it, have that conversation. I think that's one of the things that I've completely changed in my life with my children is we are constantly talking about boundaries and how are we doing and what did you not like about today? Not just what you liked, but what kind of sucked. We have these cards that we also hand out at NAMI, and it's basically in English and Spanish, and it's just conversational cards. And so during dinner, once a week, we'll pull them out, and it'll be like, what do you like about your 3 best friends? What are the top things that you love about them? And it just opens up different conversations. Sometimes they don't want to do it, to be fair, okay? But sometimes they're totally into it. So I think those pieces, when you start seeing that shift, don't be scared to go online and say, how do I have a conversation with my teen and see what comes back?
Yeah, if it was physical, like, when you're first catching a flu, okay, and people start seeing the early signs, the sore throat and the little tickle, maybe the little cough, and then you get it to where it's full blown and you have all those pains and aches and you don't want to get out of bed and the fever and all of that. People get that. they don't get that progression with mental health.
Yeah.
What do you think that disconnect is?
I think we as a society haven't made it enough of an understanding of the effect that mental health has on us. I think, like you said, a broken leg, you can see it. Oh, that person, let me help them with the door.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't see someone that's struggling to just get up and brush their teeth and think, let me go open the door for them, or let me tell them like, hey, I'm really glad to see you today. I think we're trying to do better. We're having a lot of more open conversations with it, but there's still a lot of stigma behind it, right? And again, the cultural differences too. Where do we go to when we are not feeling like ourselves? What does that look like? So if we continue to have these type of conversations and we continue to build spaces and maybe even meet the community where they are instead of expecting them to meet us when they're in crisis, that might change the way that they look at things too.
We can hope.
Yes. Yeah.
We can
That's
hope.
all we can do.
Now, you mentioned earlier you've been to Chicago, you've been to Alaska.
Yes.
Now you're here in Central Korea,
Texas.
Texas. Yes. What is it you love about Central Texas?
So I will say where I live, to be honest, affordability.
Okay.
I was a single mom for a long time. I had 3 kiddos, and the school that my kiddos were going in, actually, they had a really great program when my son was diagnosed with ADHD and anxiety.
Awesome.
And it was right after COVID. And I remember he would tell me they started going back to school, and he'd be like, Mommy, my tummy really hurts. As I'm pulling up to the school, and Mama's brain, I'm like, okay. And he would say, I had a nightmare that they locked us in school because COVID came back and we couldn't come home. And so when I was sharing with his counselor that was happening, they would they would take him into a separate class and let him kind of calm down. And I think that those things, again, the parents and teachers and counselors, like all of us coming together and identifying earlier how we can support instead of trying to make them fit themselves into a box.
Yep.
That's the difference, is really going in with a helping hand.
Yeah, that's always been my issue. Is again, before social work, I taught in private schools, and my biggest frustration with education is we're trying to fit everyone into a factory model where 100%. Everyone has to be cookie cutter and cover the same thing, but we're not.
No.
We're all individual.
Yes.
Much like your tattoos, right? Like it's very, it's unique to who you are, to your identity, and yet we try to get everyone to conform to what we expect one identity to be, and the stress that puts on kids.
Yeah, it really is. So I have really enjoyed being able to see the way that they have gone. I mean, we've been here since they were itty bitty, and now they're teenagers, and I didn't have that life. So we moved a lot. I never stayed in one place for more than 2 years. And my kids have now been living in the same area for about 11 years. So it's
this has become home.
Yes. It has completely changed. Just to see them still have the same friends as elementary school is really interesting, and it's beautiful, and it gives them a chance that maybe I didn't have when I had to transition so many times.
So what's some of the favorite things you get to do with your family around here?
Yes. Okay. So we love to eat. My kids love all kinds of food, Korean food, sushi. I mean, all the things, Indian. So we're big foodies. We try to find different spaces to go and try some new spaces to like sit and just grub on, right?
Do you have a favorite Colombian in the area?
Okay. So there is a place called Plaza Colombia.
Okay.
And they are downtown, which they have parking, y'all. You don't have to park on the street, so that's a plus. But they are fantastic. So if you have a chance, you need to go.
Okay.
They have pan de bono, arepas, empanadas. They got them all.
Okay.
So that's the spot. Yeah.
And
sure.
What other things do they enjoy doing other than food?
Yeah, right. That's a huge part. I think we also...
I identify with the food too, but don't get me wrong.
We love to drive. So, Texas has so many different... Like you can be coming this way and it's all city, but it's still really pretty. Or you can be driving towards Fredericksburg and it's very different. I mean, the land layout is just so different. So we love to just get in a car and just... Everyone has access to the same Spotify. So we literally start queuing up songs. And it's just a playlist that just kind of runs on, and we find a place, or, oh, that looks kind of cool. Let's stop there, get some food. And so we just do drives. And It's interesting because it's very much like being an Uber driver sometimes, because it's 3 teenagers screaming at the top of their lungs. And I'm like, oh, what have I done? But it's a great time.
Awesome.
Yeah.
If people want to find out more about you and NAMI, how can they connect with you?
Sure. So for NAMI, they can find us at NAMICentralTX.org.
Okay.
Everything is on there, free services. And if they want to get in touch with me, they can find me on LinkedIn. I'm at Clarena T.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate you.